Hello, friend. Welcome to History ZZZ. Get comfortable. Let your body settle into wherever you are resting. Let your shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw. Take one slow breath in and let it go. Tonight, you are going somewhere. I want you to imagine a building, not a building you have ever seen, a building that no longer exists in the world and hasn't for more than 2,000 years. It is called the Library of Alexandria, and tonight you are inside it. The year is 48 BC. Alexandria is the most important city in the world. It sits at the mouth of the Nile Delta, on the Egyptian coast of the Mediterranean Sea. 300 years ago, Alexander the Great himself drew the plan for it in the sand, measured out the streets, chose the location of the royal quarter, pointed to where the harbor should go. Alexander never lived to see it finished, but the city he imagined became something extraordinary. You have been here 6 months. You came from Athens originally, following a letter of introduction from your teacher to a scholar here who studies the movements of the stars. You have not gone home since. There is too much here. There is always too much here. The streets smell of salt water and spices and horses. The harbor lights are just coming on. Somewhere in the royal quarter, there are drums. The library is part of a larger complex called the Mausion, a word that means roughly a place sacred to the muses. It is not one building but several. Lecture halls, covered walkways, a dining hall for the scholars who live here, botanical and zoological gardens, and at the center of it all, the stacks. The stacks. You walk through the entrance now, past the columns, past the guard who nods at you because he knows your face. The air changes immediately. It is cooler in here. Drier, calmer. The smell is extraordinary. Papyrus and cedar and something faintly sweet, the oil they use to preserve the scrolls. It is a smell you will remember for the rest of your life no matter where you go. You walk deeper in. The light falls softly through high windows. The shelves rise above you on every side. The scrolls are organized by subject and by author. There are shelves for medicine, Hippocrates and his students, hundreds of treatises on the body, on plants, on how fevers move. Shelves for mathematics. Euclid worked here just 2 generations ago, and his Elements sits in 100 copies. Shelves for astronomy, for geography, for philosophy. The geographer Eratosthenes worked in this building. He calculated the circumference of the earth here, using shadows and a well in the desert and pure mathematics. He was off by less than 2%. Aristarchus of Samos argued from this city that the earth moves around the sun. He was right. No one believed him for another 1,700 years. All of this is on these shelves. You reach out and touch the edge of one scroll. The papyrus is cool and slightly rough under your fingertips. Someone wrote these words. Someone thought these thoughts. They are here. The scholars who live and work here come from everywhere. From Greece, from Rome, from Persia, from as far east as India. The Ptolemaic kings who have ruled Egypt since Alexander's death have made it their policy to collect scholars the way other kings collect horses or gold. The story, probably true, is that the first Ptolemy ordered his agents to search every ship that docked in the harbor. If it carried books, the books were confiscated. Copies were made. The copies were returned. The originals stayed here. You have heard the scholars argue about this. Some find it outrageous. Others think it is the most sensible policy any ruler has ever devised. At a table near the window, 2 men are arguing in low, urgent voices about whether Plato's theory of forms can be reconciled with Aristotle's observations about animals. They have been arguing since morning. They will probably argue until midnight. Neither will convince the other. Both are right about different things. You have a favorite corner. Third row from the back, left side, near the window that looks out toward the botanical garden. When the wind comes off the sea in the evening, you can smell the garden from here. Jasmine, mostly, and something else you've never been able to identify. You sit down, you unroll the scroll you've been working through for the past 3 days. It's a text on the mechanics of water, pipes, pumps, the movement of pressure, written by an engineer named Hero who worked here a generation before you. His diagrams are extraordinary. Careful ink drawings of valves and siphons with notes in a handwriting so small you sometimes need better light. He understood things about water that most people in the world won't rediscover for another 1,000 years. You read slowly. There is no reason to rush. Outside, the harbor is quiet. The evening birds are calling. But tonight, something is different. The drums you heard earlier have stopped. The usual sounds of the harbor, the creak of rigging, the shouts of dock workers, the rhythmic thump of unloading, have been replaced by something else. Silence, mostly. And then occasionally voices raised in argument. You know why. Julius Caesar arrived 2 days ago. He came chasing his enemy Pompey. The civil war that has been tearing Rome apart for years has now spilled into Egypt. Pompey landed here before Caesar and was murdered on the beach by Egyptian soldiers trying to please whoever won. Now Caesar is in the royal palace, 3 streets away. Queen Cleopatra, 21 years old, brilliant, locked out of her own throne by her younger brother, is said to be planning something. The scholars in the library try not to talk about it, but you can feel it. The city feels like a held breath. The chief librarian tonight is an older man named Apollodorus. He has been here for 30 years. He started as a copyist, then a cataloger, then an archivist. Now he runs the acquisitions, the process by which the library decides what to pursue, what to copy, what to send agents out into the world to find. He comes to your corner sometimes in the evenings. He knows you're working on Hero's water mechanics. He was the one who found you the complete set. Tonight he pauses by your table. He doesn't say anything about Caesar. He doesn't say anything about the ships in the harbor. He says, "There's a text just arrived from Carthage. Agricultural methods, Punic, probably 3rd century. I thought you might want to look at it before I catalog it." You say yes, of course. He nods and moves away down the aisle, his sandals quiet on the marble floor. He brings you a scroll wrapped in a cloth that smells of sea salt. Punic text, the language of Carthage, which Rome destroyed utterly 60 years ago. You can read it barely. You studied it for 2 months specifically so you could read texts that arrived here from the Western Mediterranean. It's a farming manual. Mago of Carthage, a name you recognize from references in other texts. Agricultural methods for olive cultivation, grain storage, orchard management. This is remarkable. Most of Mago's work was destroyed when Rome burned Carthage. What survived was translated into Latin and Greek, and the originals were lost, but this is an original. You sit for a moment just holding it, thinking about the person who wrote it, thinking about everything that had to happen. The city falling, the text surviving, the sea voyage, the merchant who carried it, Apollodorus's agent who noticed it. For this object to be in your hands right now. Outside, something changes. The harbor sounds again, but different. Not the rhythm of commerce, the sound of ships moving, oars. Several scholars look up from their work. Someone near the window stands. You set down the Carthage scroll carefully, making sure it's properly rolled before you move. From the window, you can see the inner harbor, Caesar's fleet, Roman ships, heavier than the Egyptian ones, is maneuvering. The torches on the masts trace slow arcs across the water. No one speaks. Then someone says, quietly, "He's trying to control the harbor." And that's all. You go back to your table. The Mago scroll waits where you left it. You pick up where you were. Around the second hour of night, you need air. You leave the main stacks and walk to the garden courtyard, the open space at the center of the Mausion complex, surrounded on four sides by the covered walkways. The garden is planted in quadrants. Each quadrant represents a different region of the known world: Egypt, Greece, Persia, and what they call the East, meaning everything beyond Persia toward India. At night, in the dark, you can't see much, but you can smell it. The Egyptian quadrant has night-blooming flowers, something white and impossibly fragrant. You sit on a stone bench. The stars are very clear tonight. You can find the cluster that Hipparchus cataloged, the one in the constellation you know as the Bull. He counted 850 stars from this same city. He noticed they moved, very slowly, over centuries, compared to what earlier astronomers had recorded. He called it the precession of the equinoxes. He didn't know why. No one would understand why for another 1,500 years. A woman sits down at the other end of your bench. You've seen her in the library before. She works on medicine, you think, or possibly botany. She's from somewhere in Syria originally, you've heard. She arrived here 2 years before you. She says, "Are you worried?" You think about it honestly. "About Caesar?" you ask. "About the library," she says. There's a long pause. In the harbor, a horn sounds, Roman, deep and low. "The library has survived pharaohs and conquerors and fires and floods," you say. "It survived the Ptolemies warring with each other. It'll survive a Roman general settling his personal quarrels in our harbor." She nods slowly. She doesn't look entirely convinced. You're not sure you are either. "He's not like other generals," she says. "I've read his dispatches. He's very good." You both sit with that for a while. The flowers keep blooming. The stars keep moving. You go back inside. The library at the third hour of night is quieter. Half the scholars have gone to sleep. The lamps have been turned down in the outer rooms. But in the center of the stacks, where the oldest texts live, there are always a few people. There is always someone reading. You find yourself walking slowly through the shelves you know best. The Greek poets, the histories, the medical texts. You've never tried to add up how many scrolls are here. The estimates you've heard range from 400,000 to 700,000. No one knows precisely. The cataloging is never quite complete because new texts keep arriving. You stop in front of a shelf you don't usually visit. Literature from Mesopotamia. Text translated into Greek from cuneiform, the old wedge-shaped writing of Babylon and Assyria. You pull one out at random. A myth. An old story about a king who tried to find immortality and failed, and came home and had to learn to live with being human. You stand there in the aisle and read. The story is very old, older than Homer, older than the pyramids, possibly the oldest story anyone has ever written down. The king's name is Gilgamesh. He is 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, which the Babylonians apparently considered an explanation for why he was impossible to deal with. He has a friend named Enkidu, wild and strong and free, and for a time they are invincible together. They fight monsters, they defy gods, they feel immortal, and then Enkidu dies. And Gilgamesh realizes for the first time that he will also die, that the same thing that took his friend will take him. He cannot accept this. He leaves everything, the city, the throne, the world he knew, and goes searching for the secret of eternal life. He finds it, almost. A plant at the bottom of the sea. He dives for it. He holds it in his hands, and a serpent takes it from him while he sleeps. Gilgamesh goes home. He failed. He lost the plant. The serpent swallowed it, shed its skin, and slithered away renewed, which is why serpents can shed their skins and humans cannot. He stands outside the walls of his city, Uruk, and a voice tells him, or perhaps he tells himself, the text is ambiguous in a way you find beautiful, to look at the walls, to look at what he built, to see that it will last. The immortality he wanted so desperately he already had, not in his body, in what he made, in what he left behind. You roll the scroll back up carefully. This story was written in Babylon more than 1,500 years ago. A scribe pressed it into wet clay with a reed stylus. It survived. It was translated. It is here. You think about the walls of Uruk. You think about this building around you. It happens around the 4th hour of night. Not inside the library. Not yet. Not ever, probably. That story is more complicated than most people know. What burns is the harbor. Caesar, trying to prevent the Egyptian fleet from blockading him, sets fire to his own ships. The fire spreads to some of the ships in the royal harbor. Some of those ships are carrying books, part of a secondary collection, a warehouse annex near the docks where texts were sometimes stored before they could be properly cataloged. You see the glow before you hear anything. Orange on the ceiling of the stacks. Someone shouts. Everyone in the library moves to the windows facing the harbor. The fire is contained. It doesn't reach the Mausion. The library itself is fine, but standing at the window watching the harbor burn, every scholar in that room is doing the same calculation. What was in the warehouse? What was there that is not here? By morning, though you don't sleep that night, the fire is out. Apollodorus comes to the main hall and speaks to everyone. He is calm. He has already been to the warehouse site. 40,000 scrolls, he estimates. The annex held texts waiting for cataloging, recent acquisitions, duplicates, texts whose value hadn't been assessed. Not the rarest things, not the oldest things. The library's core collection is untouched. 40,000. You sit with that number. The library's main collection, 700,000, some say, or 400,000, depending on who you ask. 40,000 is a significant fraction. Apollodorus says, "We will rebuild the annex. We will replace what can be replaced. Some of it was already copied. Some of it was duplicates. Some of it," he pauses, "some of it was singular. We will have to find it again or accept that it is gone." Silence in the hall. Then someone asks about the Mago text, the Carthage agricultural scroll that arrived the day before. Apollodorus looks at you. You realize it is still on your table. You never returned it. It never went to the warehouse. "It's safe," you say. You walk through the stacks in the early morning light. Everything is exactly where it was. The engineering texts, the geometry, the poetry, the myth of Gilgamesh back on its shelf in the Mesopotamian section. The Mago scroll, still on your table, rolled and wrapped in its sea salt cloth. Outside, the harbor is quiet again. Caesar's men are moving through the city. Somewhere, Cleopatra is making her move. The world is shifting. You can feel it. But you are in the library. And the library is intact. You sit at your table. You unroll the Mago scroll to where you left off. Olive cultivation, 3rd century BC, Punic, surviving everything that should have destroyed it, landing in your hands at the end of a night you will never forget. You read slowly. There is no reason to rush. The Library of Alexandria did not die in a single fire. That is the myth, dramatic and clean and false. What actually happened is harder to sit with. It declined over centuries. Funding decreased. Scholars went elsewhere. The city changed. The empire changed. The Mausean slowly became something different. The fire of 48 BC, the one you watched, damaged a warehouse annex, not the library itself. The library survived for at least another 300 years after that. But eventually, yes, the knowledge was lost. Not all at once, piece by piece. We know what was there partly because we know what we're missing. Aristotle wrote 150 treatises, we have 31. Sophocles wrote 120 plays, we have 7. The works of Archimedes on floating bodies, partially recovered from a prayer book in Constantinople in 1906 because a monk scraped the original text off the parchment to reuse it. And the ghost of the words remained. The ghost of the words remained. Let yourself settle now. Let your breathing slow down. You've been in Alexandria. You've walked the stacks and held the scrolls and watched the harbor fire from a high window. You've read Gilgamesh at the 3rd hour of night. Let all of that go quiet now. There is nothing you need to do. There is nowhere you need to be. Feel the weight of wherever you are resting. Feel your shoulders releasing. Feel your breathing slow to something easy and natural. The library is intact. The Mago scroll is safe. 40,000 scrolls were lost, and that is a grief, but 500,000 remain, and the scholars are already back at work. There's always more to know. There's always another scroll on another shelf in another language waiting for someone who took the time to learn to read it. Let your eyes close. Before you sleep, one more thing. Hipparchus, working in this city, cataloged 850 stars. He noticed they moved. He called it the precession of the equinoxes. He didn't know why. We know now. The earth wobbles on its axis slowly like a spinning top winding down. One full wobble takes 26,000 years. The stars Hipparchus watched are still there. Right now, above wherever you are, the same stars are moving across the same sky. A little shifted from where he saw them. 2,000 years of wobble moves things slightly. But the same stars, the same sky that was over Alexandria when you sat in the garden, when you held the Mago scroll, when the harbor burned and the library survived. It's the same sky. Let yourself drift toward it. You were in Alexandria, 48 BC, the greatest library ever built, the harbor burning and the library intact, Gilgamesh on the shelf, Mago safe on your table. The library will last another 300 years. The knowledge will travel to Rome, to Constantinople, to Baghdad, to the monasteries of Ireland, to the universities of Spain, to us. Most of it will survive, some of it won't. We are still living with both facts, but tonight it was intact. Tonight you were there. And now it is time to sleep. Sleep well. History ZZZ.